If you follow these 4 pillars, you're going to be successful. Like, I hate using the G word, but it's pretty much guaranteed, right? But those 4 pillars are, the first one is education. The second pillar is mentorship and coaching. The third pillar is networking and relationship. And then the fourth one, this is the biggest one because those other 3 don't matter if you don't do this one, right? You can educate yourself all you want. You can have the right person coaching you or mentoring you. You could have the right network with the right people in the right place. With this 4th pillar, which is action, if you don't take action, all of that stuff just kind of fizzles away.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Eat, Sleep, and Invest. I'm your host, Brian Driscoll, and I'm here with Mike Cavaggioni. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's going on, Brian?
Doing pretty good. Hope I didn't butcher your last name there.
Just a little bit. It's Cavaggioni.
Cavaggioni. All right.
Yeah, no, it works. It works.
So I was talking with Mike a little bit before the show. We're going to be talking about some stuff today, like financial independence, networking, how to get good at stuff, like all kinds of stuff. But Mike, before we do any of that, why don't you give everybody a little background on like what all you're into and what you do?
Sure. So originally from Long Island, New York. Now I'm living on another island. I live out in Eva Beach, Hawaii. I was in the Navy for 20 years. I retired in December of 2022. So that's pretty nice. But during my time, like as I was getting closer to the end of my career in the Navy, I realized that retirement wasn't going to be enough and I needed to do something else. So I decided to look at investing in real estate. Now, rewind back to 2007. That's actually when I got into my first deal. And just think about the year, right? So it was 2007. So not so many good things happened then. Kind of left a bad taste in my mouth and I walked away from real estate for years, right? Big mistake on my part. I just didn't know it yet. So 2019, decided to get back into it, met up with some friends that were doing it, went over some deals with them and said, hey, how do these look? And they were like, hey, looking good. Like you're looking at the right stuff. So I said, great. So I bought a duplex. We closed on that in February of 2020. What happened the next month? It was like the second end of the world with COVID, right? So that was fun. But I didn't let that one scare me away. I decided to, rough it out and stick with it. And later got into real estate syndications, right? As a LP, I'm in 3 of those right now. I did try my hand as a GP this year on a deal that fell through and, didn't work out, but that's okay. Again, real estate's not going to scare me away anymore, right? I love it so much. It's been really good to me. But one of the biggest things for me is that what really got me into it was the actual people in the real estate industry. Just some of the people I met are just some of the most amazing people, right? At networking events, at conferences. I would say 97% of the people that I have met in real estate are amazing. 3% are scumbags. You have that everywhere, but 97% are just amazing people. So, but that's pretty much me in a nutshell, man. In the Navy for 20 years, got back into real estate, network with other people. I have a podcast too. And I love this stuff, man. Love it.
Now, your podcast, what all do you talk about on next? I saw you're on like episode over 200 now, right?
Yeah. I think 237 just came out It's called Average Joe Finances. We talk about personal finances. We talk about alternative investing in things such as real estate. We talk about side hustles, just basically how to create multiple streams of income, right? Because when you look at most millionaires, right, they have at least 7 streams of income, right? So that's the goal is building up that passive cash flow. And that's what we talk about on that podcast.
That's cool. What do you see the top passive streams or avenues of income that a lot of people are having success with?
So you'll see that most of the people that come on my podcast to talk about those things are real estate investors, right? Real estate has been like the biggest avenue. There are a couple other different things like side hustles, like small ways to increase your income, doing things through index funds and ETFs and other things like that. But real estate's always been the biggest thing. Now, maybe I'm being partial because I prefer real estate, but most of the people that I've talked to have had their success in real estate.
That's cool. Yeah, I like the side hustles. I always had a side hustle. I was even flipping silver before on Craigslist, flea market stuff. Like there's so many different ways to like make money in addition to your normal income.
Yeah, I mean, you could build up a side business. I have that too. Like I have a podcast editing business that they started off working on my show and now we help multiple podcasters. And that's a really nice side business for me. It's a nice income. Each time I get a new client, it's almost like getting another rental property with the amount of cash flow I get every month because it's a subscription-based service. So it works out pretty good.
Yeah, so it's something interesting there too. It just popped in my head. It's like when you're getting a side hustle, pick something you like. Because then it's
Yeah,
not like work. Like I'm guessing when you help people with their podcast, it's not like you're going to a job or anything. It's something you enjoy doing.
I absolutely love doing it. Yeah, it's fun, man. Podcasting to me has been really good. It's been really fun. It's helped me build my network. It's helped me build not only my network but also my net worth, right? Because that is one of the side effects of growing your network, right? I know it's a cheesy saying, your network is your net worth, but it's cheesy because it's true, right?
Yeah, it's so true. So, do you see any real estate investors getting benefit from doing their own podcast?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like even for me, like two of the deals that I got into were from my podcast. One of the folks was a guest on my show and had this deal that was coming up, and they only wanted a few investors in it. And they said, "Hey, Mike, I remember from when I was on your show, and I know you were getting into syndications. I have this deal, and here's the details." And they sent me everything over, and I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And I get constant deal flow in my inbox all the time. Some of the things that might not interest me, but then other things that do interest me, right? But I know a whole bunch of other podcasters in the real estate space that do really well thanks to their podcast. As a matter of fact, I'm going to a conference this March called RubeCon, the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference. And the guy that runs that has a podcast as well, Dustin Heiner, and his podcast has taken off and it's gotten him multiple deals and coaching clients as well. And that's another thing I've gotten from mine too, is coaching clients, because I do financial coaching as well. So there's a lot to be had and a lot to gain from actually having a podcast. So I feel like, in since 2020, podcasts have been exploding. I feel like I got in at a good time, like at the ground level, and was able to take really good advantage of that.
I see the same thing. Like originally, I always thought podcast was like you do a podcast, the biggest benefit was getting popular, people listening to it, things like that. And then I've come to find it's not. It's the conversations that you can have and the doors that it opens, even just having someone on as a guest. Like sometimes you can be trying to reach out to someone, you'll never get them on a phone. But if you invite them on a podcast, there's a high likelihood they're going to show up, and then you can have a conversation and build a relationship.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Speaking of stuff like that, like it's always interesting, like some of the backgrounds you see on different podcasters, or just different backgrounds that they have, and your coffee is for closers. That's near and dear to my heart.
Oh, you like
I
that one?
absolutely love that. So
Yeah, that movie was awesome.
yeah. So I'm a big coffee drinker. So it's 20 years in the Navy, man. I can't help it. It's like I was. It was like the nectar of the gods, really.
Right, right.
So
I saw in your information, you talk about 4 pillars to be good at anything.
yeah,
What are you
absolutely.
talking about there? What are these pillars?
Yeah, so this whole thing started off because I talk about a lot of personal finances and wealth building. It started off as the 4 pillars to building wealth, and then I realized it's really the 4 pillars to building anything, right? Because if you follow these 4 pillars, you're going to be successful. Like I hate using the G word, but it's pretty much guaranteed, right? But those 4 pillars are, the first one is education, right? Anything that you want to get into or you're interested in, it's important that you actually learn about it, right? That you educate yourself. I think that's huge. Whether it's taking a course or whether it's making a few mistakes on a couple deals and learning some very valuable lessons, you're going to wind up paying for that education, right? And there's a lot of free stuff out there too, like podcasts, YouTube videos, and things like that. But you could sift through that stuff all day. And a lot of times, you can wind up getting lost in the sauce. The second piece, the second pillar is mentorship and coaching. Now, there is a difference between the two of them, but I think you can kind of go either or, right? Having a mentor is really good because that's somebody that's more experienced, that kind of takes you under their wing and kind of points you in the right direction and guide you, not necessarily holding your hand the whole time, but, just like when you teach somebody how to ride a bike, you got to hold the seat a little bit and then you let go. That's the way I picture a mentor, right? And then a coach is usually somebody that you pay that holds you accountable, right? You set goals and this person is making sure that they hold you accountable. They're pretty much like an accountability partner that has knowledge in the topic that you're interested in. The third pillar is networking and relationships. This is a big one. This is one of my favorite ones because going out and networking and building relationships is one of my favorite things to do. I'm a big time extrovert, and I just love getting out and meeting new people, hearing their stories, sharing my story. It's just a really great way to build up, right? And then the fourth one, this is the biggest one because those other 3 don't matter if you don't do this one, right? You can educate yourself all you want. You can have the right person coaching you or mentoring you. You could have the right network with the right people in the right place. But this fourth pillar, which is action, if you don't take action, all of that stuff just kind of fizzles away. You just have a group of really successful friends and you're the one that's still on the outside looking in, right? So I think if you follow those four things, doesn't necessarily have to be in that order, but action being the final piece and the biggest piece, if you follow those four pillars, you can be successful at anything.
Yeah, I'm with you there too, especially on the action. That's where I see almost everybody gets held up. Everyone has ideas. They can go learn everything, especially like you see, there's people that are like lifelong college students, right? But I see people, especially in the real estate space too, they keep learning and learning and learning. And they're like, hey, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. Just jump in the pool. The water's good, you know? It's like, you will figure it out. You just got to get in because you need to get punched in the face a couple times and fail. Just doing it will put you on the road to figuring it out.
Absolutely. So I recall talking to somebody at this conference I was at last year. We were at the same conference the year before, right? They came to my breakout session because I was one of the guest speakers there. And we were talking afterwards and we talked about what their goals were at the first conference that they were at. And then, you know, I asked them like, hey, did you follow up on any of this stuff? Like, did you get any of this done in this past year? And they're like, no, I'm still waiting to get started. I'm like, look, man, I was like, you got to take action, jump into something, jump in feet first. You don't have to jump in head first. You don't want to break your neck, right? But jump in feet first, get in there, right? Get yourself in there, see what it's all about. If you have to start off small, that's fine, but do something. Don't just sit here and keep coming to these conferences, meeting people, you know, taking these courses, all the stuff that you're spending this money on. Your investment's not going to pay you back if you don't actually act on it in the end. So I'm hoping that if I see them this year, that they're going to have some good news for me that you know, they jumped in and got into something. Well, actually, I kind of already know they did because we've been talking over WhatsApp. I've been following their journey. They got into something finally. Actually, I think they're about to get into their third deal. So really awesome. But the biggest piece was that actual jumping off and taking action. Like you said, jump into the pool. The water's fine, right?
Yeah, and anyone listening too, it's like in anything in life, you got to take the action. Like even for example, this podcast that we're talking on right now, just decided I was going to do a podcast one day and just opened a laptop. I was recording on my laptop camera, laptop microphone on Zoom. And you just do it. And if you go back, you can look at the first episode on YouTube. It sucked. Like everything was bad about it, but at least you start something and then you're like, oh, wow, that's bad. Maybe I can tweak this. Maybe I can tweak this. And you gradually get better. So even on real estate, it's like, go knock on some doors, like download Deal Machine or one of those apps and spend $50, $100, go knock on doors, send a couple of mailers, and at least you'll find out if it works. You might get yelled at or you might find a deal, you know?
Absolutely. And that's the biggest thing, right? It's going out there and actually doing something and taking action. I mean, same thing like when I started my podcast, you go back and watch the first couple episodes, it's pretty rough, right? Until I figured it out. But I actually recently just switched to a laptop camera because my other camera I have a 4K camera and I use that like for another angle if I need to. But I just went and got a new MacBook Pro and the camera on it is insanely good. So I went back to using that. Now, back in the day, when I first started, I had like a Bluetooth, not a Bluetooth, but like just a USB hookup microphone. Like I was using a Blue Yeti. Eventually I got to the point where I went and got a Rodecaster and got an XLR microphone just to enhance the quality. But it was something that I had to build upon, right? But if I would have waited till I had all this stuff, I feel like I would have missed the boat when it came to actually getting into the podcast itself, right? Because I was ready in 2020 to do it. And I took action and started and just did it. Now, it did take some convincing from a buddy of mine. He kind of twisted my arm. I said, oh, I'll wait till I get out of the Navy. Well, that didn't happen until 2022. So that would have been, 2 years that I missed. So it worked out pretty good, I think.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, the good mic back then wouldn't help you anyways. It's like, because you got to learn how to speak and things too. It's like, just start doing what you got. You know what I mean? Which brings up another thing you were talking about too. It's like networking and like who you have in your corner also. So it's like, okay, you got to start, but then also make sure you got the right people. You know what I mean? They can help you out and you don't hook up with the wrong people that give you bad advice and take you down a bad road.
Absolutely. When I first started my podcast too, speaking of having the right people, I was doing everything myself, man. I was recording the episodes. I was editing them and just doing everything, making the videos, adding all the little effects and the intros and outros and all that good stuff. I mean, I think I did hire out building an intro and outro to some folks on Fiverr, which I still use those intros and outros today because they're great. But about 6 months into it, man, I was really burnt out and I was thinking about quitting because my job in the Navy, I was working like 12 to 15 to 16-hour days. And it was difficult, right? I really had like very minimal time to actually work on my stuff. Like I would come home from work and work on podcast stuff for like 2 hours before I had to go to bed, right? And, I started to notice like my wife and kids were like, hey, man, who are you? We haven't seen you. So I was like, okay, something's got to give here. I wound up outsourcing, right? I hired a team to actually edit my podcast and do everything else for me. And it freed up so much time. And for me, it was about finding those right people, right? And I met them through someone else, another podcaster that knew, actually another real estate investor that I knew that had a podcast. And they were like, oh yeah, dude, we don't do our own editing. You should talk to these guys. So I did and outsourced to them. And eventually we came together as a team and started our business to help other podcasters. So it's just been, again, and that all started from a conversation. It all started from people that I knew in my network. So I think that's the biggest point I want to get across, right? Just, you can have the right people in your corner. You just have to go out there and meet them first.
Find the right people. And then also, when you get to the point too, it's like you only have 24 hours in a day. And really, you're sleeping around 8 of them. So you got that many left. It's like you got to find out, okay, what kind of stuff can you do only? Like, are you the only one that can do it? And then which type of people do you need to surround yourself with that you can have them do that? They're probably better at some of the things anyways. Allow them to do it so you can continue doing what you do and like kind of delegate and basically buy back your time,
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of talk about that in Traction, right? I don't know if you've read that book, but
Oh, yeah.
and it's about getting the right person in that right job. Like you don't have to be, even if it's something that you're good at, but it takes up too much of your time, like you have to figure out what's going to be the best use of your time. And if it's something you're not so good at, but there's somebody else that's really good at it that you can hire to do it, how much is your time worth that you get back, right? I do put a number on my time and I think to myself, okay, if I can pay under this number to have someone else do this, this makes it worth it to me, right? Because I get that time back that I can use to go earn that number. You know what I'm saying? So like and you know who talks about that a lot is Brandon Turner, right? And that's actually where I heard it a lot was on the Bigger Pockets podcast when he was still there. And that has always stuck in my head. And it's always like, okay, is this something that's worth me doing or should I hire someone else to do it? And that's kind of the way I look at almost anything now. And it's been very helpful.
I 100% agree on that too. So say you can make, say for an even number, $100 an hour. Look at everything you're doing. And if you can get rid of 60% of your stuff, if you can pay somebody $50 an hour to do it, have them do that stuff so you can do more of the $100 an hour stuff, which is going to turn you into a $200 an hour person. Like always keep looking at like taking self-inventory of the stuff you do. And I kind of look at it too based on energy. It's like some things I do, I really like doing and I get energy from it. Other things I'm like drained. It's like, get rid of those things first. Like cleaning the house. I hate cleaning the house. So hire a cleaner. Some people love cleaning the house, I mean, case in point here, like, so I'm also a real estate agent on the side as well. I got my hands like in a lot of things, right? But because I do so many other things, like at first, when I first got my real estate license and I was doing this, I was doing everything myself, like all my transactions, everything. Now, like I hire a transaction coordinator that pretty much runs the entire transaction for me. Like I'm there, I write the contract, I get everything done, and then my transaction coordinator takes it from there. And then she'll reach out to me and say, hey, Mike, I need this. And then I'll go get that. Right. But other than that, like they're running the entire transaction and I pay them, a decent pay, but compared to what I get for my commission, it's pennies. Right. So to me, it's totally worth it because I get all of that time back that I'm not running around and having to do all these little things, like these little tedious things during a transaction. And I think that's huge. And most real estate agents that use TCs, that use transaction coordinators, do it for that exact reason. So again, it's about getting that time back because your time is valuable. You have to treat 100%.
It as such.
Yeah, 100%. Hey, Mike, what's the best way people can reach you?
I keep it easy, man. You could just go to my website. It's my name, MikeCavaggioni.com. There's links for everything that I do on there, my podcast, real estate, financial coaching, like everything's there. So just go to that website. You can find everything you need.
Nice. And everyone listening, we'll have that in the show notes too, so you can just go on the website and click. Hey, Mike, what's your top book you'd recommend?
I'm going to give you one that's not real estate or finance related because it's something that I've really been getting into lately, and I feel like it's helping me change my life, really. But I've been getting into Stoicism a lot recently, and I just recently read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, right? So Marcus Aurelius was this Roman emperor, right? Hundreds of years ago, right? And he wrote in a journal, but the stuff that he wrote in his journal was turned into this book. And it's amazing. Like when it comes to just, how to be a good human, how to be a good person, for me, how to be a good man, like it's just been it was really eye opening. So between reading that and now listening to a bunch of podcasts and just YouTube videos on Stoicism, it's just awesome, man. It's pretty much what I listen to every morning now to get me started.
Hey, well, Mike, thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate you.
Yeah, Brian, this was a blast, man. You have an awesome podcast, and I'm really honored that you asked me to be a guest. So thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it. Hey, everyone, thanks for listening. Until next time, get out there, crush it, close some deals. We'll see you guys.